Why is it that when you want someone the most, they seem to slip away, but the moment you disappear, they suddenly start chasing you? Is it just pride, a coincidence, or is there a hidden force silently pulling the strings between two souls? Carl Jung believed that nothing in human desire is random. There is a deep instinct, rooted in the unconscious, that reacts more strongly to absence than to presence. When you truly detach, you don't lose your place, you awaken the secret fear of being forgotten, and that fear has devastating power. What you're about to discover today is more than just a technique. It's a psychological truth capable of turning any relationship upside down. This is the kind of detachment that makes them chase you, even when they don't want to. The silence that speaks louder than words. Silence has a way of unsettling people. When someone is used to your constant messages, your attention or your energy, the sudden absence of those signals speaks louder than anything you could ever say. It's not just the lack of words, it's the unspoken message behind it. Carl Jung suggested that the unconscious reacts strongly to contrasts, and silence is one of the most powerful contrasts we can experience. It creates a gap, an empty space that the other person unconsciously feels the need to fill. Think about how the mind works. When everything is predictable and consistent, it becomes invisible. We stop noticing what is always present. But when something changes, when the noise fades into quiet, the brain is forced to pay attention. Silence triggers questions that echo inside the other person's mind. Why did they stop talking? Why did their energy shift? What does this mean for me? This curiosity can grow into restlessness, and restlessness into desire. This kind of silence is not about punishment or manipulation. It's about withdrawing the unnecessary noise that keeps the other person comfortable. When you're always available, they unconsciously assume you will never leave. But when you step back, when your voice and presence no longer fill the space, the unconscious alarm begins to ring. Jung believed that what is missing often holds more weight than what is present, because absence forces projection. They project their fears, their insecurities, and even their longing onto the silence you create. The power of silence also comes from what it represents: independence. It signals that you are no longer begging for attention, no longer tying your value to their response. Silence, in this sense, is dignity. It's the proof that you are strong enough to stand without clinging. And strength is magnetic. The unconscious is drawn to strength like a flame attracts the moth. It cannot explain why, but it cannot resist. But this silence must be authentic. If you are silent while secretly waiting for a reaction, your energy still reveals neediness. True detachment comes when you no longer need their response to validate your worth. Jung would call this individuation, the process of becoming whole in yourself, no longer relying on the external to complete you. When you embody this state, your silence becomes natural, and it radiates a calm power that others feel immediately. The paradox is clear. The more you speak, the less your words are valued. The less you chase, the more your presence is missed. Silence makes the other person confront the emptiness they once overlooked. They may try to ignore it at first, but soon it becomes impossible. The absence of your voice becomes louder than any argument, any plea, any attempt to convince. And here lies the secret. Silence transforms the balance of power. You are no longer the one chasing, the one proving, the one reaching. You are the one standing still, whole and complete. In that stillness, the other person feels the pull, not because you demanded it, but because the unconscious cannot tolerate the vacuum. Something in them awakens, and they begin to chase what once felt guaranteed. This is the kind of silence that speaks louder than words. The silence that makes them notice, question, and eventually move toward you. Not out of choice alone, but Because the psyche itself is wired to respond to absence more than presence. And once you understand this, you realize that silence is not weakness. It is one of the most powerful forms of communication in human relationships. The mystery of pulling away to be pulled closer. There is something deeply paradoxical in human relationships. The more you lean in, the more the other leans out. The harder you try to hold, the more they seem to slip away. And yet when you release, when you let go, an invisible force begins to pull them back toward you. It feels like a game of opposites, but in truth, it is one of the most consistent patterns of desire in the human psyche. Carl Jung believed that our unconscious is always responding to tension, to the push and pull of energy. When you push too hard towards someone, their unconscious feels invaded. They instinctively protect themselves, even if they don't consciously understand why. It's not that they don't like you, it's that the pressure activates their defense mechanisms. To protect their individuality, they step back. But when you step back first, when you pull away with calm strength, their unconscious suddenly feels the gap. And that gap acts like a magnet. Think of it like breathing. When someone exhales, the natural next step is to inhale. Relationships follow a similar rhythm. If you are always pushing forward, always exhaling energy, the other person suffocates. But when you pull back, when you allow space, you invite the natural inhale, the return of their energy toward you. It is not manipulation. It is the restoration of balance. The mystery lies in how powerful this law is. People may insist they want someone who is always available, always giving, always present. But the reality of the unconscious says otherwise. Constant presence dulls the senses. It makes the connection ordinary. Pulling away restores the mystery, and mystery is what keeps desire alive. Jung taught that the psyche craves symbols, unknowns, and unanswered questions. When you are slightly out of reach, you become the symbol of what they cannot fully possess, and that is what draws them closer. This pulling away, however, must not come from bitterness or coldness. If you withdraw in anger, the energy becomes toxic, and the unconscious responds with resistance. The kind of detachment that makes them chase you is calm, dignified, and genuine. It is the energy of someone who values themselves enough to no longer beg for scraps. It is quiet strength, not loud punishment. When done from this place, the effect is undeniable. Psychologists often call this the law of polarity. Jung would have described it as the dance between opposites. Masculine and feminine, conscious and unconscious, closeness and distance. For attraction to stay alive, both poles must be present. Too much closeness kills the tension. Too much distance kills the bond. But pulling away just enough to create space, restores polarity. And polarity is the spark of desire. Notice how the most unforgettable moments in relationships are often those when someone was nearly lost. The missed call, the sudden silence, the unexpected distance. These are the moments when the unconscious wakes up. It whispers, "I might lose them." And that whisper is powerful enough to reverse roles, making the one who once ignored you the one who now begins to reach. But there's another layer to this mystery. Pulling away not only changes how they feel about you, it changes how you feel about yourself. It breaks the cycle of dependency. It proves that you are capable of standing on your own, of breathing without their constant approval. This shift in your own energy is what makes the detachment authentic, and authenticity is magnetic. When you no longer need to be chased, that is exactly when you are. The mystery of pulling away is not a trick. It is a truth about human psychology. We are wired to notice change, to crave what is scarce, to desire what is not guaranteed. When you embody this truth, you stop chasing and they start moving toward you, not because you forced them to, but because the unconscious law of attraction leaves them no other choice. And this is why pulling away, though it feels like loss at first, often becomes the moment when everything shifts. It is the doorway through which they re-enter, the silent invitation for them to chase what they once took for granted. Before we continue, if you've ever felt the hidden patterns of love and desire shaping your life, the Jung Method can guide you deeper. The link is pinned in the first comment. Why absence feels stronger than presence. There is a strange reality about human desire. What is present often feels invisible, while what is absent feels unbearable. We may think we value what we have, but in truth, we value most what we fear to lose. This paradox is one of the great mysteries of attraction, and it is why absence can feel stronger than presence. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious works through symbols and contrasts. The mind doesn't only respond to what is given, it responds more powerfully to what is taken away. When someone is consistently there, their presence becomes part of the background. You see them, you hear them, but the unconscious files it. Under certain, and certainty, though comfortable, is not exciting. The psyche begins to take it for granted. But when presence shifts into absence, everything changes. That background comfort is replaced with an empty space, and emptiness has weight. It pulls attention, it stirs imagination, it forces the unconscious to react. Suddenly, the one who was overlooked becomes the one who cannot be ignored. Absence creates presence in the mind, often more intensely than physical closeness ever did. Think about how memory works. Often, we remember more about the people who left than about those who stayed. The person who walks away unexpectedly leaves a stronger imprint than the one who never leaves our side. This is because absence triggers projection. Jung explained that when something is missing, the unconscious fills the gap with imagination, fear, longing, and desire. In other words, absence multiplies meaning. Presence, by contrast, can dilute meaning if it is constant and unchanging. Familiarity is comfortable, but it breeds invisibility. The mind gets used to what it always has. Only when it's gone do we truly see its value. That is why absence carries such emotional power. It awakens awareness. But there's something deeper. Absence doesn't just create awareness, it creates movement. When someone feels your absence, they are not only reminded of you, they are moved toward you. The unconscious hates unresolved gaps. It pushes the person to close the distance, to chase what is missing, to resolve the tension. That movement is what makes absence feel stronger than presence. It compels action. This is not about manipulation. It's about understanding a universal law of human connection. Just as silence amplifies words, absence amplifies presence. Just as shadows make the light more vivid, distance makes closeness more desired. Jung would say this is the balance of opposites, the tension that keeps life and love alive. Absence also reveals dependency. When someone feels your absence deeply, it exposes how much of their inner world was tied to you. Perhaps they denied it, perhaps they ignored it, but absence makes it impossible to hide. They feel the emptiness, and with it the truth. They need you more than they admitted. That realization often turns indifference into longing. But here is the key. Absence is only powerful when it is natural. If you force it, if you disappear as a tactic, the energy feels artificial. The unconscious senses manipulation, and the pull weakens. True absence comes when you genuinely detach, when you reclaim your energy, when you stop chasing and simply live. That authenticity is what gives absence its force. Absence also has the power to transform you. When you create space, you no longer drown in the noise of constant interaction. You find yourself again. You reconnect with your strength, your independence, your individuality. And it is this renewed energy that radiates outward, pulling others back toward you without you having to move an inch. In relationships, absence creates longing. Longing creates pursuit, and pursuit reignites connection. But only when the absence is real, when it is born from strength and self-respect, not games. That is why it feels stronger than presence, because it forces the unconscious to act, to imagine, to desire, and to move. So the next time you feel invisible in your presence, remember this: absence has a power that presence alone cannot hold. It's not about punishing or withholding, it's about creating the space where true desire awakens. And when that happens, they don't just notice you again, they chase you, pulled by the very force that absence set in motion. The unconscious. Fear of being forgotten. Deep inside every human being exists a fear we rarely admit out loud, the fear of being forgotten. More than rejection, more than conflict, it is this silent erasure that unsettles the psyche. To be forgotten means to vanish, to lose significance, to become invisible in someone else's inner world. And nothing provokes the unconscious more strongly than the possibility of disappearing. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious carries all our hidden fears and longings, and one of the most universal is the terror of irrelevance. From childhood, we long to be seen, heard, and remembered. Recognition feeds our sense of existence, but when someone who once gave us attention withdraws it, that primal fear awakens. The unconscious begins to whisper, "What if I no longer matter? What if they no longer see me? What if they forget I exist?" It is in this moment that detachment becomes so powerful. By stepping back, you do more than create silence or distance. You awaken this ancient fear of erasure. The other person may not consciously say it, but deep down, the fear of being forgotten pulls them back toward you. It is not always love that brings them closer. Sometimes it is the unconscious dread of losing their place in your story. Think about how memory attaches value. The people we can't forget are not always the ones who treated us best. They are often the ones who left us with a gap, a question, an absence. Why? Because our unconscious cannot bear incompleteness. The open space they leave behind forces us to fill it with imagination and longing. That is why absence carves deeper marks than constant presence. To forget someone who gave us everything is easy. To forget someone who left suddenly or who detached gracefully is almost impossible. The fear of being forgotten also ties to identity. We often build part of our identity through how others see us. If someone stops seeing us, stops acknowledging us, we feel a fracture in our own self-image. This is why detachment can be so magnetic. It destabilizes the identity of the other person. Formed through your presence, they feel incomplete without your recognition, and that incompleteness drives them to return. Jung would explain this through the lens of the shadow. We hide our deepest fears in the unconscious, but those fears still shape our actions. When faced with detachment, the shadow fear of being forgotten rises to the surface. It manifests as anxiety, restlessness, even obsession. Suddenly, the person who seemed indifferent is the one trying to reach out, to reclaim their place in your awareness. But here lies the subtle truth. The fear of being forgotten only awakens when your detachment is real. If you are still chasing with your energy, even silently, they feel secure. They sense that they still occupy space in your world. But when your energy withdraws authentically, when your life moves forward without them, the unconscious feels threatened. They realize they may truly fade from your memory, and that possibility terrifies them. This fear also explains why people often return after long periods of silence. They may not have loved you fully, they may not have valued you when you were present, but the thought of being erased from your life, of being a ghost in your memory, pulls them back. It's not always rational, but the unconscious rarely is. It follows instincts, and the instinct to avoid being forgotten is one of the strongest. Yet there is another dimension. The fear of being forgotten doesn't only work on them, it works on you too. By learning to embrace detachment, you must also confront your own fear of being forgotten. You discover that your worth is not tied to who remembers you or who seeks you out. You learn to anchor your identity in yourself, not in someone else's attention. And this inner strength is what makes your detachment authentic, not forced. This duality is powerful. While you release your fear of being forgotten, you awaken theirs. You step into freedom, and they step into longing. It is a reversal of roles that happens naturally, not through manipulation, but through self-mastery. And in that reversal, the chase begins. So remember this. At the core of human attraction lies not only the desire to be loved, but the desperate need not to be erased. Detachment presses on this nerve. It awakens the unconscious fear of being forgotten, and in doing so, it compels them to move toward you, not out of choice alone, but out of a primal instinct to survive in your memory. This is why detachment is so magnetic. It is not about punishment nor about games. It is about understanding that absence speaks directly to the deepest fear of the human psyche, the fear of no longer existing in someone else's world. And when that fear awakens, chasing you becomes inevitable. When letting go creates an invisible magnet. There is a paradox at the heart of every human bond. The moment you let go, the pull becomes stronger. You may spend weeks, months, even years trying to hold on, trying to prove your worth, trying to convince someone to value you, and yet none of those efforts seem to create the response you long for. Then one day, something shifts. You release them, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with quiet acceptance. And suddenly, they feel the pull of an invisible magnet drawing them back toward you. Carl Jung often emphasized that the unconscious responds not to words, but to energy. People sense when your energy is clinging, even if you never say a desperate word. They feel the invisible pressure of your need. That pressure repels. But when your energy changes, when you truly let go, the pressure dissolves. Instead of pushing them away, you create space, and space is what allows attraction to grow again. Letting go is not pretending. Pretending to detach while secretly waiting for their reaction still carries the vibration of neediness. And the unconscious is too perceptive to be fooled. True letting go is surrender. It is the deep decision to stop holding what does not want to be held. In that moment, something inside you calms. Your worth no longer depends on their response. Your presence no longer revolves around their validation. You return to yourself. And this return creates a shift in the field between you and them. Before, your energy was like a hand clutching tightly, leaving no room for movement. Now it is an open space, and that space becomes magnetic. Why? Because human beings are drawn toward freedom, not pressure. We are drawn toward what feels light, not heavy. When you let go, you become light again, and the unconscious cannot resist what feels free. Jung would say that letting go allows individuation, the process of becoming whole within yourself. When you no longer demand completion from the other person, you radiate wholeness, and wholeness attracts. People are not truly drawn to what is desperate. They are drawn to what is complete. When you embody completion, you awaken desire in the other. They feel the pull, not because you chased, but because your independence reflects what they secretly long for in themselves. The magnet of letting go also works because of scarcity. When you stop offering your attention freely, when your presence is no longer guaranteed, the unconscious marks it as valuable. Abundance without boundaries feels cheap. Scarcity feels precious. By letting go, you unintentionally create scarcity. You are no longer everywhere, always available, always ready. And suddenly, what was ignored becomes wanted. But there is more. Letting go not only changes their perception, It changes your vibration. You begin to stand taller, walk lighter, breathe deeper. You reconnect with your passions, your friends, your purpose. You stop orbiting around someone else's gravity and create your own. And this new gravity is magnetic. People sense when you are living from fullness, and they are drawn to it instinctively. Think of it like a flame. When you clutch the flame with your hands, it burns out. But when you let it breathe, it grows brighter. The same happens in relationships. Clinging suffocates the fire, letting go feeds it. And ironically, the moment you stop trying to hold the flame, the other person is the one who reaches toward its warmth. This invisible magnet is not about manipulation. It is about alignment. When you are aligned with your own strength, your own self-worth, you naturally attract. You no longer beg, chase, or force. You simply exist in your own light, and those who once overlooked you begin to notice again. They may not even understand why, but they feel it. Something in you shifted, and now they cannot resist the pull. Letting go also exposes the truth. If someone does not move toward you even when you release, it reveals they were never meant to stay. And that realization, though painful, frees you to continue forward without illusions. In this sense, letting go is always a victory. It either creates the invisible magnet that pulls them back, or it clears the path for someone better aligned with your soul. Either way, you win. So when you feel the urge to grip tighter, to fight harder for someone slipping away, remember this. The real power lies not in holding on, but in letting go. For it is in letting go that you awaken the invisible magnet, the force that compels them to chase what they once took for granted. And if they do not, you have still found something greater, the strength to walk free, whole, and complete. The energy shift that changes everything. Human connections are built on energy far more than on words. You may say all the right things, make all the right moves, but if your energy is heavy, needy, or desperate, the other person will feel it immediately. The unconscious responds to vibrations faster than the conscious mind can process. This is why you can sense tension in a room without anyone speaking, or why you instantly feel drawn to some people while avoiding others. Relationships are, at their core, an exchange of energy. And when your energy shifts, everything changes. Carl Jung taught that the psyche constantly seeks balance between inner and outer worlds. When your inner world is chaotic, you project that chaos outward and it repels others. But when you realign within yourself, when you reclaim your energy from desperation and return it to self-worth, the projection changes. You radiate calm strength instead of need. And strength is magnetic. The shift begins the moment you stop living in pursuit of someone else's validation. As long as you orbit around their attention, your energy vibrates with lack. The unconscious signal you send is simple: I am not enough without you. And people, sensing this, instinctively pull away. They are not always cruel, but they are repelled by the weight of your dependence. But when you turn inward, when you build your worth without leaning on them, the vibration changes. Now the signal becomes, I am whole with or without you. That energy is irresistible because it carries freedom. Think of the difference between a beggar and a giver. The beggar drains energy, and people avoid them. The giver radiates abundance, and people are drawn in. In relationships, clinging energy feels like begging. Detachment feels like giving, not giving attention desperately, but giving space, giving freedom, giving the other person the room to choose you. That generosity of spirit makes your energy light, and light energy always attracts. The energy shift is also about presence. When you stop chasing, you redirect your focus to yourself, your passions, your growth, your joy. You begin to live again instead of waiting. This self-directed energy creates a glow. People may not understand why, but they notice it. You seem brighter, more alive, more grounded, and this glow calls them back. Not because you demanded it, but because your energy now nourishes rather than depletes. Jung would explain this as individuation, the journey toward becoming a complete individual. When you step into individuation, you are no longer half a person seeking a missing piece. You are whole, and wholeness radiates a frequency that the unconscious of others recognizes. It whispers to them, "This person is solid. This person is complete. I want to be close to that energy." But this shift cannot be faked. If you pretend to detach while secretly obsessing, your energy still carries neediness. The unconscious picks it up like static. True detachment happens when you genuinely reclaim your energy. You stop waiting by the phone. You stop replaying conversations. You stop feeding the illusion that your happiness depends on their presence. Instead, you return to your center, and in doing so, your vibration rises. The beauty of this shift is that it not only changes how they see you, it changes how you see yourself. You begin to feel lighter, freer, stronger. You realize that your value was never tied to whether they chased you. You realize that your worth does not shrink when someone overlooks it. This realization is liberation, and liberated energy is deeply attractive. This is why so many people report that when they finally move on, that is when the other person returns. It is not magic, it is energy. When you stop chasing, you release the heavy vibration of lack and embrace the light vibration of abundance. And abundance pulls people in. The energy shift that changes everything is not about tactics. It is about truth. The truth that you are whole. The truth that you are enough. The truth that you do not need to be chosen in order to shine. When you embody that truth, your energy announces it silently. The other person feels it, not with their ears, but with their soul. And once they feel it, the chase begins. So remember this: words can be ignored, actions can be misread, but energy never lies. When your energy shifts from need to strength, from lack to fullness, from clinging to freedom, everything changes. They may not understand why, but they will feel it. And that feeling will pull them toward you like an invisible current, impossible to resist. The hidden power of not needing anyone. One of the greatest illusions in human relationships is the belief that needing someone will make them stay. We think that if we show how much we depend on them, they will feel compelled to value us. But the truth is very different. Neediness does not attract, it repels. What truly draws people closer is the opposite, the energy of not needing them. It sounds paradoxical, even cold, but it is one of the deepest truths about desire. Carl Jung often emphasized that the unconscious seeks wholeness. When you approach someone from a place of lack, their unconscious senses the imbalance. You are asking them, silently, to complete you. But no one wants the weight of carrying another person's identity, value, or happiness. This hidden pressure suffocates connection. But when you approach life from wholeness, when you radiate the message, "I am complete in myself," the unconscious of others responds with admiration, curiosity, and attraction. Not needing anyone does not mean rejecting closeness. It does not mean living without love. It means no longer making your worth conditional on someone else's presence. It means enjoying connection while knowing that your identity does not collapse if it disappears. This independence is rare, and rare things are magnetic. People feel it instantly. You are with them because you choose to be, not because you cannot live without them. That freedom makes your presence valuable. There is hidden power in walking into a room without needing to be seen. The energy is calm, grounded, unshakable. It communicates silently. I am enough as I am. This message is irresistible because most people secretly live with the opposite feeling, that they are not enough. Being near someone who radiates completeness awakens something inside them. They feel safer, yet more curious, more drawn in. Jung would describe this as the process of individuation. When you individuate, you stop seeking your missing half in another person. You integrate your shadow, your wounds, your longings, and you step into the fullness of who you are. This wholeness changes everything. The unconscious of others recognizes it immediately. It says, "Here is someone who is not enslaved by need. Here is someone strong enough to choose, not beg." That recognition makes them chase, not because you demanded it, but because their own psyche cannot resist the pull of wholeness. But here lies the paradox. The moment you no longer need anyone, you become wanted by many. Why? Because not needing anyone removes pressure. It creates space for genuine connection. People no longer feel trapped by your expectations, but invited by your freedom. They know you do not depend on them for survival, and that makes being with you a choice, not an obligation. Choice is always more attractive than duty. The hidden power of not needing anyone also protects you. It shields you from manipulation, from being trapped in unhealthy dynamics, from losing yourself in someone else's story. When you do not need anyone, you can walk away with dignity. And that ability to walk away increases your value in their eyes. Humans are wired to pursue what can leave. When you show that you are free to stay or go, you automatically become more desirable. This does not mean you must be cold or detached from life. On the contrary, it allows you to love more deeply. Because your love is no longer born from need, it becomes purer. You can give freely, without fear of losing yourself. And this kind of love, free, strong, and independent, is the kind of love people long for the most. It is rare. It is unforgettable. Jung believed that when you stop projecting your missing pieces onto others, you discover the self, the deepest, truest part of you. And once you live from the self, you realize a truth that changes everything. You were never incomplete. You never needed someone to validate your existence. You were whole from the beginning. When you embody this truth, people feel it. They chase, not because you cling, but because you radiate something they desperately wish they had within themselves. So the hidden power of not needing anyone is this. It frees you from desperation. It liberates others from pressure, and it transforms you into a magnet of quiet strength. You do not have to prove, beg, or fight. You only have to stand in your wholeness. And from that wholeness, the chase begins. Not because you need them, but because they realize they need you. The detachment that turns the chase around. Every relationship, every connection, every desire is shaped by an invisible law. The harder you chase, the further they run. The moment you release, the moment you step back, the chase begins from their side. This law is not written in books of strategy. It is written in the human psyche itself. And it is this law that explains why the right kind of detachment flips everything upside down. Carl Jung understood that the unconscious is always searching for balance. When one person gives too much, the other unconsciously takes more. When one pursues, the other instinctively retreats. This is not cruelty, it is polarity. But when you detach, not with anger, not as a tactic, but as a genuine act of self-respect, you restore balance. The roles reverse. The one who once leaned away now feels the pull to lean closer. Detachment works because it shifts the energy. Field. All through your chasing, your energy screamed, "I need you to feel whole." That vibration pushed them away. But detachment whispers, "I am whole already," and wholeness attracts. It awakens curiosity, it awakens fear of loss, and it awakens longing. The unconscious feels it before the conscious mind does. They may not be able to explain why, but suddenly they are pulled back toward you. This is not about punishing someone or playing games. Games are temporary. Detachment is transformation. It is the decision to stop tying your worth to someone else's response. It is the courage to stand in your own strength, even if it means walking alone. And in that strength, you radiate the kind of energy that others cannot resist. Think about what we have uncovered. Silence speaks louder than words. Pulling away draws them closer. Absence feels stronger than presence. The fear of being forgotten shakes the unconscious. Letting go creates an invisible magnet. Energy shifts change everything, and not needing anyone makes you irresistible. All of these truths converge in one final realization. Authentic detachment is the force that turns the chase around. But remember, authentic is the key. Pretending does not work. The unconscious is too wise for tricks. If you detach while secretly waiting, you are still chasing. If you let go while checking for their reaction, you are still clinging. True detachment comes when you genuinely release, when you embrace your own wholeness, when you no longer need them to validate your existence. That is when the law activates. That is when they feel the pull. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming a complete self. And individuation is not only about psychology, it is about relationships too. When you individuate, you stop projecting your emptiness onto others. You stop demanding completion from them. You live from fullness. And fullness cannot be ignored. It attracts naturally, silently, inevitably. The beauty of detachment is that it creates a win-win outcome. If they chase you again, it is not because you begged, it is because your energy awakened something in them. And if they do not, you are still free, still whole, still standing strong. Either way, you are no longer trapped in the exhausting cycle of proving yourself. You are no longer enslaved by the fear of being forgotten. You are free. And that freedom is magnetic. The paradox of life is this: when you stop needing, you start receiving. When you stop chasing, you start attracting. When you detach, you do not lose. You gain everything, because what you gain first is yourself. So the final truth is clear. The kind of detachment that makes them chase you, even when they don't want to, is not a trick, not a tactic, but a transformation. It is the transformation of you, from someone dependent on another's gaze to someone radiant in their own light. And once you stand in that light, they cannot help but notice. They cannot help but turn. They cannot help but chase. And whether or not you let them catch you, that choice will finally be yours.